Hi, I'm Sharon Coventry and I'm from Ballyfermot Training Centre. And when Carrie asks you to do something with all the energy that she has, it's very hard to say no. So hopefully this presentation might be of some interest to any future participants. I was quite lucky in that I got to do a number of courses this year. I did the UDL digital badge and the facilitators badge. Which is the one that I'm talking about today. I also got to do the Technology Enhanced Learning and Design in NUI Galway and the TELMS, the Technology Enhanced Learning Mentor with CDETB. Because when these opportunities came up in lockdown, that I presumed that I wouldn't have a class in front of me, but then the end of August that we had classes and the courses. So it was a little bit crazy, but it's definitely worth it. And I was also so lucky to have a manager who was so supportive of the learning taking place kind of with staff, which was brilliant. And not only the learning, but also to implement changes that you become aware of when you're on these courses. So the first thing was that I found, and when I was talking in the peer groups and the triads, was what's the big deal about UDL? I hadn't really heard a whole lot of UDL kind of until the last year or two. And when we actually looked at it and said, well, it's about giving learners options. But any of us who are really passionate about teaching, isn't that what we've been actually doing for years? And especially when you're on the hard face of things and you're dealing with all different skills, levels, lack of skills, that it's something that we're automatically doing. We're trying to find ways of getting the understanding of the learners. So when our little triad groups that we had, which were brilliant, that we were all saying, well, actually, this is something that we're doing. So that brought me on to the next thing. What is it that you gain from doing this course? You actually gain a lot more knowledge and confidence that these are actual kind of formats, that these are recognized formats that it can do. It's not just about kind of giving different options, because I'd say that's something we've been doing. It's giving confidence to go to management, go to TSO and saying, this is the way we need to do things. These are the options, and to know that there's a legitimate idea. It's not about watering down assessments. And often that was what some of us were afraid of doing, that by giving different choices, giving options, were we actually watering down the assessment? And that was something that we were very careful not to do. So instead of that, we just wanted the participants, the trainees, the apprentices, to be able to actually demonstrate their understanding of the topic. And that, at the end of the day, is really what the assessment should be about. I also gained kind of great support. We have triad groups within the UDL course, and where there was a group of 4 of us. And it was great to see what's going on in other centres and to be able to have those informal chats to compare kind of resources, lack of resources, different issues and all the rest, and to actually try things out together. And at times it felt like it was the blind leading the blind, but we got there and, you know, we had such a laugh. And definitely the group that I was with, I was very lucky with, and definitely will be in contact with them in the future. My experience, kind of where my background is, that I work and I do the communications and team leadership with apprentices in phase 2. So this is their first experience of a training centre and their future college kind of life as it is for the next 2.5 years. But 23.5% of apprentices, in my experience, present with a learning difficulty. Now that could be dyslexia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia. It could be just, you know, a variety of things. And what I've often found is it's the fear of the blank page. And my own son kind of would certainly kind of with dyspraxia kind of have that experience. He could talk about a topic for 2 hours, but getting a paragraph down on a page is an absolute nightmare. So that was one thing that I found was very evident kind of across kind of a wide spectrum of the apprentices that we're having. And it wasn't necessarily just the ones that had been labelled kind of and tested. It actually was much wider than that. So with the UDL, we were at and it was actually really hard thing to do, just to start the process, start the whole idea of implementing UDL into what it is that we're doing. So what I did was that I looked at where my students were struggling, where they were asking me what felt like the same question again and again. And either I'm not clear about it, or it's something they really don't want to do and they're trying to get out of it, or they don't understand it. Or so I looked at what it was and then kind of decide to implement the +1 solution, which you've heard other speakers talk about. We're giving another option, but sometimes the +1 comes to +8 or 9. So I chose the reflective practice assessment that the apprentices have to do in phase 2, 4, and 6. So it's not a case that they just do it with me and then they're off the hook. They actually have this throughout. And that's something that SOLAS particularly like apprentices learning by looking back on their experience and learning from their experience. However, my profile of apprentice is generally kind of male in the 18 to 28 age group. And anyone who has had experience of people of this age group, teenagers at home, whatever, when you ask them to talk about their feelings, how do you feel about doing that? It's just like, oh my God, it's an absolute nightmare trying to get them to talk about it. So when you're saying things like discuss your feelings, describe the situation, how did you feel? Like, grand, yeah. Would you change anything? No, went great. And if you're trying to grade a reflective practice and you're getting everything went great, grand, no, it's really, really hard to give them effective marks with it. It's so difficult to actually get them to embrace the whole idea of reflective practice. And I always point out to them, reflective practice is something that we all do naturally, whether it's you have an argument with somebody in the workplace, the girlfriend, whatever the case may be, that you're driving off down the road and you're automatically thinking, oh, I should have said this, should have done that. And they do it naturally. But trying to get them to put it into an essay format was an absolute nightmare. So what I did was that I looked at potential different options that they could do. So obviously the first one, which SOLAS had on their exam, is that they write kind of it in an essay or journal format. Now, I've been incredibly lucky that because I am part of a core group, that I get to input as to the changes that can be made kind of in the national assessment, and absolutely blessed to be in that position so that I could actually use this experience in this course to make a change on a national level. What I did was initially that I put in a template, because at least it took away the fear of the blank page, and they had headings and boxes kind of to write in. So that proved quite a popular choice kind of with apprentices. I gave them the option of doing it in a PowerPoint. And again, even by having a different heading on each slide, it's building up, it's taking away that, oh my God, I have to write about my feelings and I have this whole page in front of me. So by doing the PowerPoint, they were gaining presentation skills, IT skills. Doing the voiceover PowerPoint, again, for those who didn't want to stand up on front of a class, and I completely get that. But if they do stand up on front of a class, it's absolutely brilliant because they're overcoming that obstacle if they haven't done it in the past. And for future, for giving presentations and work, you know, down the road, kind of when they're going into kind of more senior positions, that I really try to encourage them to do that. Anyway, the voiceover PowerPoint, again, kind of really, really great that it takes away the nerves, but they can get their point across. What other option I absolutely loved was that further reflective practice, that they could actually do a video in their workshop, in their own surrounds where they're way more comfortable, and actually talk through, well, this is the car that I spray painted and when I was doing this, and they're actually able to show their work and engage. And so instead of having 3 words under kind of a particular heading for the Gibbs reflective cycle, they're losing themselves in a sense of that they're not inhibited, they're not thinking about the words, they're more engaged in what it is that they're showing, what they've done, and they've got a bit of pride in it as well, so that they're able to talk in their own surrounds, way more comfortable. You're getting a much better flow of information, and you're getting them their actual genuinely thinking and reflecting on things as they're discussing it in their video. And be it a TikTok, a WhatsApp video, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And they're all so comfortable in doing that, more so than my generation. I also gave them the option of working in pairs where they could interview, they could do it reporter style. They could, and that gave both parties kind of the option, a good experience of actually asking the question, putting their classmate under pressure, or getting their revenge, whatever the case may be. And so they could even do the role play of reporter. I didn't care if they were going to do it as a therapist, kind of once it got them talking about their experience, and have a bit of fun with it. You know, not, I say, the whole page kind of essay type thing. Have a bit of fun with this, you know, get to know, show kind of what you've been doing, reflect on a project that you've done. So definitely I really, really enjoyed it. but just about the effects. So it wasn't just about giving the choice, and these new choices are actually being rolled out kind of in September on the new versions of the exams, that the choice that it's really quite open as to what way they want to present. For the students, it was more practical, they were more responsive, and that the actual assignment was more relatable. They got to build on their IT skills. They got to develop presentation skills if they chose to do the presentation option. And even at the presentation, when they were actually being questioned, oh, well, I would have done this, or, you know, their classmates be joining in, that it was great because then they were getting to reflect again kind of on the situation. So generally the feedback was that they got kind of a lot more out of the assignment by being able to do it their way. There have been better grades and no repeats, because like I actually had a guy who said he was doing great at every other aspect of the assignments that I was giving him, but he did not want to talk about his feelings. He did not want to discuss something. He goes, no, I'd rather not get the marks. I don't care. I'll risk kind of getting a lower grade. And sometimes young men kind of that I've been dealing with can be quite barriers up kind of when it comes to things like that. So I ended up not having repeats, and then if people have to repeat, there is a risk that they will drop out, that they have a new experience of the education system. Some of these people have had very poor experiences because with exams, they've always failed in the past because it's been the traditional assessment. The traditional assessment does not work for everyone, and it really, really hinders, and they've had a very, very negative experience. But by passing, by getting through, by actually getting the assignments done and done well at that, that you're actually encouraging lifelong learning. This could be the start, kind of the trigger for them to go on and to actually have confidence in themselves, to learn and to actually pass and to progress. It improved their self-esteem, because again, if they had actually failed in the past and they were used to failing continually, that again, kind of that was a huge thing. If you've always failed every school exam that you've ever done, and next of all, you're able to pass, it absolutely builds self-esteem, that you're no longer a dropout, you're no longer all these different labels. It's not too long ago, it's certainly in living memory for me, that the dunce's corner was a thing, you know. So again, getting rid of all of these horrendous kind of experiences that some unfortunately have had. There wasn't just benefits for the student. Oh, I'm just trying to get onto my next slide here. There's also for the organisation itself, for SOLAS and CDETB, that there was less costly repeats of having to bring students back, having to organise kind of new assessments, be it staff time, etc. There was less dropouts because people are actually able to complete their assignments. So there's a higher number of completions, which always is a very, very positive thing when dealing with government funding. It's encouraging, hopefully, more learners to apply in the future, because not saying, oh, no, you have to do all these essays. And it's, again, you're encouraging kind of the next kind of group of learners coming through. And also it was a chance for us to work more towards fulfilling our commitment that was made in the SOLAS and the FET policy of 2020 to 2024. Other benefits then were for the teacher, that I had more engaged students. The content was actually much better because they were enjoying telling me about their actual projects, as opposed to, yeah, grand, you know, the 2-3 words that I was getting. Less repeats, happy days for me. And then I also had more resources for future learners. I was able to, with their permission, obviously, use their videos and things like that, say this is the sort of thing I'm looking for. And if it was trade related and they could relate to it, absolutely, kind of they were getting more kind of, it was easier then for the next group to understand. And for me, it was more enjoyable to correct. For the employer, that apprentices completing their apprenticeship in a timely manner, absolutely, and they didn't have to give time off for repeats. And then they'll also have a more qualified workforce. And then on a completely kind of much higher level, the government then kind of hopefully will have more qualified tradespeople and fulfilling its commitment also. So I actually had one student, it wasn't in relation to this particular assignment, but it was one where I'd given choice and doing video on that. And his actual quote was, "This is the first exam I have ever passed." And he said, "I can't wait to go home and tell me ma, and she'll be so proud." And he was just over the moon with himself. And this was a hard nut and was very, very defensive type person. But the fact that he was given choices just It was a whole kind of first, and it was absolutely brilliant. And that's what made me decide I want to do more of this. So basically, I'll say that one change can actually be a life changer and has multiple effects and multiple benefits. Thank you.